Good afternoon. It's a real treat to be able to introduce to you today CVNE's Imperial Gran Reserva 2014. I've done a couple of videos so far on some of Noble Rot's drinking wines. This is the first time I've done a video on what I would call a special parcel wine, and it really is a particularly special wine. Imperial, as many of you might know, is one of the most prestigious names in Rioja, from Rioja Alta, which is just outside the town of Haro. Rioja Alta is the northernmost of the three Rioja appellations. And what that means is it essentially gets the cooling influence of the Atlantic Ocean, meaning wines of more freshness and acidity than its more southern counterparts, which is why Rioja Alta wines are some of the most highly prized in the world, and particularly Imperial is one of the best producers. Imperial, or CNVE, the family, CVNE even, are celebrating 100 years as a winemaking family, which shows the length and breadth of their tradition. Which is wonderful. 2014 itself as a vintage was classed officially as excellent. It had a long, stable growing season and a relatively stable harvest as well. The vineyards themselves, that I'll put a video down here hopefully now, the vineyards are utterly stunning. They hug the surrounding hillsides and mountainsides. The wine itself is made with 3 grapes. So classic for Spain, we have 85% Tempranillo. We have 10% Graziano and 5% Mazuelo. The wines for a Gran Reserva, this Gran Reserva Imperial, come from 3 of their best vineyard sites. They are Villalba, Briones and Torre Montalbo, where the average vine age is a minimum of 40 years old. And if you know anything about wine, you know that the older a vine is, the less fruit it produces, but the higher quality of the fruit that it does produce. So 40-year-old vines minimum give you an idea of the depth of flavour we can expect from a wine, from a CVNE Imperial Gran Reserva. The grapes are all hand harvested, and once they get to the winery, they're hand selected twice. So that's sort of a belt and braces approach to ensuring that only the very best grapes go into a Gran Reserva. Because a Gran Reserva is only actually classed or called in the very best years. So there wasn't a Gran Reserva made in 2013. This is the first Gran Reserva since 2012. So the grapes are hand selected twice. They're fed into French oak vats for fermentation via gravity to ensure that there's no bruising of the fruit by hands. And once fermentation's happened, the wine is aged for 2 years in American and French oak, and then a further 3 years in bottle. Although by now this wine's had slightly more than 4 years in bottle, so it should be a wine of real depth and complexity. What I'll do now is I'll pass over to the family themselves for about a minute, just under a minute, to let them explain a bit about their philosophy and their view of Imperial. It's worth watching. But if you'd rather, you can skip to my quick tasting note at the end, and you can do that now.
A family is all about continuity. You have a family, you have children, because you expect them to have children and for things to continue. Of course, what matters is the now and then. But this is the idea that I think is behind every family. And with Imperial, the same philosophy applies. There will always be an Imperial. We're very lucky that it's always been made by our family, and I hope that this continues to be the case forever. But there needs to be, as you have children, they will be similar to you in some things and different in others. And with Imperial, it needs to be the same. The vintage will talk, but the style of the wine has to be there. This velvet quality, this smell of Gothic cathedral, which is it's a silly thing to say, but really that's what it smells of.
Imperial was the wine which really represents the essence of our style, of Rioja, of who we are. We adore it. It's close to us. We've got it in our blood.
And now for the tasting note. First thing to look at is the colour. So it's got this lovely deep ruby colour, with just an edge of garnet on the edge of the wine, probably because of its age. It is 2014 after all. The nose. Wow, sort of a billowing perfume, a sort of swirling nose. Lots of black fruits, black cherries, black plums, a bit of juniper berry coming through, and then there's menthol, sort of a refreshing mineral note in there somewhere. It's almost like coconut or coconut rusk. And minerality is lovely. Then there's sweet spices, there's clove, nutmeg, but blackcurrant leaf, a bit of tobacco leaf, and then there are these deeper, richer notes. There's iodine, there's roasted coffee, dark chocolate. It's a wine which has the whole spectrum of flavours and lots of them. Whether you know anything about wine or not, you'd be delighted to smell it and try and pick out all those flavours. It's a wine of incredible balance. It's a great offering. Okay, on the palate. Wonderful. I mean, the nose and the palate, though linked, are different. The wine smells, it's got that freshness on the nose, but it feels brooding and it's got loads of structure. It has great structure and confidence on the palate, though at the minute it's led by the acidity and the freshness of the fruit, which is remarkable. Black fruits come through. There's also a bit of red currant, there's a bit of crushed red fruit coming through as well on the palate that wasn't on the nose. Then there are those lovely flecks of white pepper. Then some of those tertiary notes, there's a bit of sweet spice, a bit of clove, a bit of nutmeg, a bit of balsamic that runs through the wine. Lovely minerality, and then the finish is still going. You know, we're 30 seconds on now, and it's still there. Lots of acidity still happening. There's dark chocolates, a bit of roasted coffee. This is a wine which does everything. The tannins are filigree. Yeah, so the tannins are there, but they're not aggressive. They're not turning my face inside out. They will soften over time. This is a wine, I think, with exquisite balance. It's fantastic. We're offering all of the versions of this wine in wooden cases, so 6 bottles of it, which is, I think, an utter bargain. Is £200 even. So I've bought one of those. I would strongly urge everyone watching this video to buy 6 bottles of this wine. Whether you bought wine in bond before or not, this is wonderful. You won't regret it. We're also offering it in magnums for £210. And then for larger formats, we're offering double magnums, which is 4 bottles, for £145. Or you can do what I've done, and I really recommend this if you have a cellar or you like parties or large events. I bought an Imperial, as I'm calling it. So an Imperial is 6 litres of wine, or 8 bottles in one big bottle in a wooden case. Perfect as a gift, or as I'm going to be using it for an event in the future when we're all out to not have to socially distance. I think that the larger the format, the slower the wine takes to develop and age. So I know with the wine as it is, it's drinkable and beautiful and stunning. It will only get better over time. So I'm going to buy bottles for now and a large format for later. And I recommend you do the same if you can. It's an exquisite wine. It's the first time we've ever offered Imperial Gran Reserva, so we're very excited about it. We have a good allocation. It's not massive, but it's enough to satisfy a good number of clients. So do get into contact with us by email if you can, if you'd like some, or me personally if you've seen this video on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, and cheers.